Now, my name is Peter Gainsford. I'm a classical scholar living in New Zealand. This is a short review of some of the most influential YouTube videos about Homer and the Trojan War from the last 12 months. That is to say, August 2023 to July 2024. I'm not covering retellings of the legend, like the second video in this page of results. There's also a popular series by the channel See You in History. That kind of thing is much more popular. But here I'm going to focus on videos that purport to tell you something that you wouldn't get in a myth encyclopedia. Videos about what scholars think about Homer, on the history relating to the Homeric epics, and in some cases the possibility that there are historical events that the legend is based on. So, if we confine ourselves to videos from the last 12 months, and videos that have had an impact, more than around 4,000 views, that limits us to just 5 videos, or video series. For the record, my own view is that there is no basis for thinking the Trojan War legend is based on historical events, any more than in the case of any other Greek myth. But that isn't really going to come up here. Reviewing these 5 videos doesn't involve getting into details about that. Of the 5 videos, 3 are very bad, all for different reasons. One is very good, and the last and most recent one is a bit out there, but it's not ethically wrong. What do I mean by ethically wrong? Well, let's take a look. First up, in chronological order, is a half-hour video uploaded by the channel Perspective in August 2023. I do not recommend this one. It is stolen content. It's actually a TV documentary from 1999. And this YouTube channel has simply slapped on its own branding and tried to pass it off as their own work. I have no ethical problem with uploading obscure documentaries. Knowledge should be free. The dishonesty is the problem. They haven't signalled that that's what they're doing. What they're actually doing is stealing credit. This is a YouTube channel with 400,000 subscribers. They owe it to their audience to be honest, and this is obviously shockingly malicious. The documentary itself is okay, very old-fashioned. A Shakespeare scholar is the presenter for some reason, but they do interview a couple of very good Homer scholars. It's not a terrible documentary, but this is the worst possible place to watch it. Do not give this channel any views, block them, they are bad people and they should feel bad. I haven't been able to track down the original title of the documentary or where and when it first aired. It's made by a British production company, Cromwell Productions. Anyway, that's the first video, and also, alas, the one with the most views. Next up is the channel Backdrop History with a more than an hour long video called The Trojan War, Separating Myth from Reality. This one isn't stolen, but you might be able to guess from the splash image here, it's AI generated. It's all AI generated. The video is an AI generated slideshow. The narrator is a bad AI generated voice. The text is AI generated. It's all this channel does. The channel was started in July last year, apparently specifically to monetize bad AI. It's so boring and so vanilla that no one's going to pay attention to it anyway. The only thing videos like this accomplish is they train people into believing that the subject matter itself is boring. It's a terrible thing to do. Fortunately, only about 4,000 people have suffered through this garbage. I feel sorry for them. On to the third video. This is more recent, from May 2024. This is actually a video series by the channel The Historian's Craft. Or should I say, The Plagiarist's Craft, because that's what we've got here, plagiarism. These 2 videos are a page-by-page paraphrase of 20 pages from a book by Eric Klein, The Trojan War, A Very Short Introduction, published 2013. Now, when someone cites a source, they do list Klein's book in the notes underneath the videos. When someone cites a source, what you expect is that they have drawn on that source for some details or as a basis to form their own interpretation. Here, everything you get is just Klein, repackaged. And when I say page by page, I mean page by page. You can timestamp the page turns. The other video is much the same. The only thing the videos add is the slideshow. The intent is very clearly to take credit for someone else's work. It's not like they've done a lot of research. Klein's book isn't some dense, obscure tome. It's basically the Trojan War for dummies. They give no hint of just how closely they're replicating Klein. The notes do list other books, but they didn't use them. One by Jonathan Hall, one by Trevor Bryce, both top-notch scholars. If only they had read them. I know they didn't, because both videos are entirely drawn from Klein, and also because you don't read those books and come away thinking there's any evidence for a historical Trojan War. They list a fourth book which doesn't even exist. It's a fake citation. Everything about this would be better if this guy had simply read out Klein's own words as an audiobook and explained that that's what he was doing. It would have been more honest to his audience. There wouldn't be nearly as many factual errors, and it would be about the same length. Most of all, it would be more courteous to the actual author of this content, Eric Klein. For the record, Klein's book has its own problems. He says things about Homer that are not true. There are problems with how he reports Hittite documentary evidence. There are some conspicuous gaps in his research, but getting into that would be too detailed for a quick review. I said I wouldn't do that. So instead, for a reliable introduction to evidence on the Trojan War, I recommend to you Trevor Bryce, The Trojans and Their Neighbours. We're not doing well so far. 3 strikes in a row. However, the fourth video makes up for a lot. This is a half-hour video that came out just a couple of weeks ago, in July 2024. Was Homer a real person? From the channel World of Antiquity. Out of the influential videos on Homer in the last year on YouTube, this one is far and away the best. The presenter is a legit scholar, Dr. David Miano. He has a PhD in ancient history. He's published in research journals. He has an impressively wide-ranging portfolio. He's released nearly 400 ancient history videos on YouTube while doing other things. I'm impressed at his time management skills, if nothing else. I've only watched a couple, so there may be some problems I haven't seen, but based on what I have seen, I think he is worth checking out. This video is much more original and better researched than the others we've looked at. Bits and pieces here and there are still derivative, but as long as it's above board, I don't mind. I don't have a problem with that. Dr. Miano is not a Homer specialist. He makes it clear that he is reporting what specialists have said. There's no attempt to deceive. The details underneath the video cite several sources, and I can see places where he has used them. And where he does paraphrase them, it's because he's selecting particularly apt chunks, or he's not just repeating the whole of someone else's work. Much of the video is a potted history of scholarship on Homer from the 1820s to the present. That's an indirect way of approaching the question, was Homer a real person? But it does make sense. Current scholarship does not speak with one voice. With Homer, you can find consensus on isolated subtopics, but on something like who was Homer, you're not going to be finding a single answer. So explaining how ideas developed over time is a reasonably neutral way of approaching it. Yeah. Now, overall, I approve of this video, but that doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, not by a long shot. His sources aren't always ones I would have chosen. There are some weird viewpoints in there. Like when he says, everyone agrees Hesiod's poems were written down straight away rather than being transmitted orally for generations. I think they were transmitted orally for generations, for what that's worth. or that the earliest references to Homer make him the author of only the Iliad and Odyssey. Actually, the earliest one makes him the author of the Thebaid, and it doesn't mention the Iliad. He doesn't use artistic evidence properly. He talks about how the Iliad supposedly refers to the sack of Egyptian Thebes in 663 BCE. Well, I'm sympathetic to that, but a lot of Homer scholars would disagree with it. These are details. The point is, all of these are things that actual specialists have said. When you listen to Dr. Miano, you are hearing things that have appeared in published scholarship, and he gives a pretty broad range of views, not just one person's opinion. So, go and give this guy a try. As I say, this doesn't mean I agree with everything, but it is done to a polished standard. In an ideal world, more transparency would always be nice, on-screen citations for the source he's using at each point. Some of the best YouTubers do that, and I think at one point I did spot him paraphrasing part of the Wikipedia article on Homer, but all that said, this video does set the bar reasonably high enough for an MA level of understanding, let's say, as long as the MA student isn't specializing in Homer. Anyway, last video. This one just came out a few days ago. The Wooden Horse of Troy, Myth, History, or Indo-European Legend, from the channel Crecganford. This is about 40 minutes long, and it's popular. It's been watched about 10,000 times in, I think, 3 days. It's a step up from the first 3 videos we looked at. It isn't plagiarized, it isn't AI generated, it isn't copyright infringement, but I can't recommend it. It's a bit wacky and rather rambling. The real problem with the content is his method. For example, he tosses around Indo-European as a category, but Indo-European is a language category. His argument has nothing to do with language. He talks about Chinese myth at one point. Whatever he's arguing, it isn't Indo-European. More problematically, he takes an isolated motif, the wooden horse, looks for analogues in a few Eurasian mythologies, and then treats that as demonstrating the spread of a whole story. That kind of comparative approach can sometimes make sense, but only as long as you make it very clear that you're only talking about the spread of that isolated motif, not a whole story. He thinks he has an analogue for the wooden horse in the Indian epic, the Mahabharata. Even if he does, that doesn't mean the whole of the Mahabharata is copied from Greek legend, or vice versa. Individual motifs, individual episodes can be found with close parallels, but that kind of thing usually doesn't imply very much. Let me draw a parallel. In superhero comics, there's a motif where a character transforms because of an industrial accident, or a chemical accident, or a scientific accident. The Joker becomes the Joker because of an accident with chemicals. Spider-Man has an accident with a radioactive spider. That doesn't mean the Joker is copied from Spider-Man, or vice versa. The Joker came first as a character, but for the accident, Spider-Man came first. It just doesn't make sense to talk about A copying B. Stories don't have tidy genealogies. Anyway, this video is based on a selection of ancient sources. He makes no effort to engage with any research anyone else has ever done. It's fine to watch this as a bit of fun speculation, but I wouldn't take it very seriously. So there we go. 2023 to 24 hasn't exactly been a bumper year for high-quality YouTube documentaries on Homer and the Trojan War, but there are some glimmerings of hope. David Miano's work has opened my eyes to the channel World of Antiquity. I'll be keeping an eye on that from time to time. Let me just put up this little timeline of Trojan War related things as a backdrop while I finish up. This little exercise has taught me that there is a desperate shortage of high-quality scholarly material in video form out there. There are plenty of academics who do run video series, but they're often strictly pedagogical, designed to support course content, or else they're full-on academic seminars, like Herodotus Helpline, which is really good, but it's tailored specifically to professional academics. In between, there isn't very much. Lady of the Library is a channel that has its moments, although she doesn't often talk about this field anymore. There's a lot of space for people working on early Greece to use a forum like YouTube to make their expertise accessible. Put it this way, for public-facing research, my field has a lot to do to catch up with biblical studies, for example. There, you've got awesome channels like Religion for Breakfast, Digital Hammurabi, Myth Vision, loads more. The presenters aren't all researchers, but they are well-read, and they talk to real researchers. So, here's hoping for more high-quality content over the next 12 months. Maybe you've got something planned. It'd be awesome to see some new material over the coming year. In the meantime, kia kaha, thanks for listening, ngā mihi, and be well. Tēnā tātou katoa.